Tom Wilson was an ordinary man with an ordinary life. At 32 years old, he worked as a mechanic in a small shop in Columbus, Ohio. He fixed cars, paid his bills, and lived alone in a small apartment with his cat, Max. Nothing special ever happened to Tom. His days were the same, one after another. But Tom had one big dream. Since he was a little boy, he had wanted to visit London, England. He loved everything about the place: the history, the culture, and especially the royal family. He kept a small British flag on his desk at work. His friends often teased him about his love for a country he had never seen. For 5 long years, Tom saved every extra dollar he could. He worked overtime on weekends. He skipped movies and dinners out. He even sold his old car and bought a cheaper one. All for his London dream. One day, he would tell Max as the cat purred on his lap, "We'll have a story to tell. Something amazing will happen." Finally, after 60 months of saving, Tom had enough money. He booked his flight and a room in a small hotel near Buckingham Palace. He couldn't believe it was really happening. The night before his trip, Tom couldn't sleep. He packed and repacked his bag 3 times. He checked his passport 10 times. When the alarm finally rang at 4:00 a.m., Tom was already wide awake, his heart beating fast with excitement. The flight was long. Tom sat by the window, watching the clouds and the ocean far below. This was his first time on a plane, his first time leaving Ohio, and soon it would be his first time in another country. He felt like a child on Christmas morning. When the plane finally landed at Heathrow Airport, Tom almost cried. He was really here, in London, the place of his dreams. The first 2 days were perfect. Tom visited the Tower of London, rode the big wheel called the London Eye, and walked along the River Thames. He took hundreds of pictures and bought small gifts for his friends back home. On the 3rd day, Tom woke up early. Today was the day he would see Buckingham Palace and the famous royal guards. These guards stood very still, wore bright red coats with tall black hats, and never smiled or spoke while on duty. Tom had seen them in movies and on TV. Now he would see them for real. It was a cold morning. Tom's breath made small clouds in the air as he walked. He stopped at a small coffee shop near the palace and bought a large cup of hot coffee. It warmed his hands as he walked the last few blocks. There were many people outside the palace, but Tom found a good spot near the fence. And there they were, the royal guards. They stood perfectly still, like statues in their red and black uniforms. Tom couldn't believe how perfectly they stood, not moving even a finger. "Wow," Tom whispered to himself. "They really are amazing." He wanted a picture. He pulled out his phone with one hand, still holding his coffee in the other. He moved closer to the fence, trying to get the perfect angle for his photo. That's when it happened. Tom didn't see the small hole in the ground. His foot went in, and he lost his balance. He tried to catch himself but couldn't. As he stumbled forward, the cup of hot coffee flew from his hand. Time seemed to slow down. Tom watched in horror as the coffee flew through the air. And then, it landed right on the front of the nearest royal guard's bright red uniform. The hot coffee splashed across the guard's bright red coat. The dark brown liquid made an ugly stain down the front of the perfect uniform. For a moment, everything went quiet. Then people began to gasp and point. "Oh no," someone shouted. "He attacked the guard. He's going to jail now," another voice said. Tom's face turned as red as the guard's coat. His stomach felt like it dropped to his feet. In his mind, he saw himself being taken away by police, spending the night in jail, and being sent back to Ohio in shame. His dream trip was now a nightmare. "I'm so sorry," Tom said quickly. "It was an accident. I tripped. Please, I didn't mean to do it." The guard stood still as a statue. Not a muscle moved on his face. His eyes stared straight ahead, as if Tom didn't exist. The coffee dripped down his uniform onto his shiny black shoes. A large man in a dark suit appeared. He had a small pin on his jacket that showed he worked for the palace. He did not look happy. "Sir, please step back from the guard," the man said to Tom in a serious voice. Tom stepped back, his hands shaking. "It was an accident," he said again. "I'm very sorry." "We have rules here, sir," the man said. "The royal guards are not to be touched or bothered in any way." Around them, a crowd was forming. People had their phones out, taking pictures and videos of Tom and the coffee-stained guard. Tom had never felt so embarrassed in his life. "Am I going to be arrested?" Tom asked in a small voice. Before the man could answer, something strange happened. The guard, who was supposed to stand still and never speak while on duty, suddenly moved. He turned his head slightly and looked directly at Tom. "It's all right," the guard said in a quiet but clear voice. "It was an accident." The crowd gasped again. Royal guards never spoke while on duty. Never. It was one of the strictest rules. The man in the dark suit looked shocked. "James," he said to the guard, "you know the protocol." The guard named James nodded slightly. "I know, sir, but I believe this situation calls for some humanity." Then, to everyone's surprise, James smiled a small smile at Tom. "No harm done that a good washing won't fix." The crowd was now completely silent, watching this unbelievable scene. A royal guard, breaking years of tradition, to speak to an American tourist who had just spilled coffee on him. The man in the dark suit looked torn between following rules and letting this unusual moment continue. Finally, he sighed. "Very well," he said. He turned to Tom. "You're not in trouble, sir, but I must ask you to move along now." Tom nodded quickly, relieved but confused by what had just happened. As he turned to leave, the guard spoke again. "Sir," James said to Tom, "if you don't mind, I'd like to speak with you after my shift ends. 4 o'clock, at the small cafe across the street, the one with the blue door." Tom couldn't believe what he was hearing. Yes. Of course. I'll be there." "Thank you," James said, then went back to his perfect stillness, staring straight ahead as if nothing had happened. As Tom walked away, he could hear the whispers of the crowd behind him. "Did you see that?" He spoke. The guard actually spoke. "I've never seen anything like it. I got it all on video." Tom's hands were still shaking, but now for a different reason. What had just happened? And why did the guard want to meet him later? He looked back once more at James, standing stiff and proper again by the palace gate. The coffee stain was dark against the red uniform. 4 o'clock, Tom thought. He would be there. Tom spent the rest of the day walking around London, but his mind was not on the sights. He kept thinking about the guard named James and their strange meeting set for 4 o'clock. Why would a royal guard want to talk to him? Was he in trouble after all? Tom checked his phone. Videos of the coffee spill were already all over the internet. In the videos, people could clearly see the guard breaking rules by talking to Tom. Many comments wondered why a guard would risk his job over spilled coffee. At 3:30, Tom found the cafe with the blue door across from the palace. It was a small, quiet place with only a few tables. Tom ordered a tea, not coffee, and sat near the window where he could see people walking by. At exactly 4 o'clock, James walked in. He was no longer in his guard uniform. Instead, he wore simple blue jeans and a gray sweater. Without the tall black hat, Tom could see that James had short brown hair and looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes. "Thank you for coming," James said, sitting down across from Tom. "I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure I should," Tom admitted. "I thought maybe you wanted to yell at me about the coffee. Or maybe this is some kind of trap." James smiled a little. "No trap, and I'm not angry about the coffee." "Then why did you want to meet me?" Tom asked. "And why did you break the rules to talk to me? You could lose your job." James was quiet for a moment. He looked down at his hands, which were rough and strong from years of holding a heavy rifle while standing guard. "I wanted to thank you," he finally said. Tom was confused. "Thank me?" For what? For ruining your uniform. For giving me a reason to speak, James said. For creating a moment when I could break the rules without getting in too much trouble. Tom shook his head, still not understanding. I don't get it. Why would you want to break the rules? James took a deep breath. Because today was going to be my last day as a royal guard anyway. Now Tom was really confused. You were quitting? Not exactly. James looked out the window toward the palace. I've been a guard for 7 years. It's a great honor. My father was a guard, and his father before him. It's a family tradition. Then why would you leave? Tom asked. James pulled out his wallet and showed Tom a photo of a small girl with a bright smile, missing her 2 front teeth. She had James's eyes and nose. This is my daughter, Sophie. She's 7 years old, James said. And she's very sick. Tom felt a lump form in his throat. I'm sorry. She needs a special surgery. It's very expensive, James continued. I've tried everything to get the money. I've worked extra shifts. I've sold almost everything I own. But it's not enough. That's terrible, Tom said. But what does this have to do with me spilling coffee on you? I needed a way out, James explained. The Royal Guard has very strict rules. If I just quit, I would lose my pension, my benefits, everything. I would have nothing to help Sophie. But if you get fired, Tom began to understand. James nodded. If I get fired for breaking protocol, I still get some benefits. Not everything, but enough to help with some of Sophie's medical bills. So you wanted me to spill coffee on you? Tom asked. No, James said with a small laugh. That was just luck. But when it happened, I saw my chance. By speaking to you, I broke the biggest rule. And now, James pulled out his phone and showed Tom a news article. The headline read, Royal Guard breaks protocol to forgive tourist. But why? Tom read the news article on James's phone. It said that people all over the world were talking about the guard who broke the rules. Everyone wanted to know why. Some people thought James was being kind. Others thought he would be fired. So you'll lose your job now? Tom asked, feeling guilty. James nodded. Probably. But that's what I needed to happen. It still doesn't seem fair, Tom said. You shouldn't lose your job because of my mistake. Life isn't always fair, James said with a sad smile. My Sophie knows that better than most. Tom hesitated, then asked, What's wrong with Sophie? If you don't mind me asking. James's eyes grew sad. She has a rare heart problem. She was born with it. The doctors say she needs a special operation, but our regular health care won't pay for it. It costs more money than I could save in 10 years. How much? Tom asked. £50,000, James said. That was about $70,000 in American money. Tom whistled. That was a lot of money, more than he had saved for his whole trip in 5 years. What will you do now? Tom asked. Find another job. Use the small amount I get from leaving the guards. Pray for a miracle, James said. He looked tired, like a man carrying a heavy weight. Just then, James's phone rang. He looked at it with surprise. It's my boss, he said. Excuse me a moment. James walked outside to take the call. Through the window, Tom could see him talking. At first, James looked serious, then confused. Then his eyes went wide with shock. When he came back inside, his face was pale. What's wrong? Tom asked. Did they fire you already? No, James said, sitting down hard in his chair. They want me to come back tomorrow. For a meeting with the captain. Is that bad? Tom asked. I don't know, James admitted. This has never happened before. Usually, if you break protocol, they fire you on the spot. Tom didn't know what to say. He had only wanted to see the famous guards, take a few pictures, and enjoy his trip. Now he was in the middle of something that could change a man's life and his sick daughter's future. James's phone buzzed again. He looked at it, and his mouth fell open. What now? Tom asked. It's my sister, James said. She says our story is all over the news. The coffee spill, Sophie being sick, all of it. How did they find out about Sophie? Tom asked. I don't know, James said. He looked at his phone again, scrolling through messages. Wait, there's a reporter who found old posts on my Facebook page where I talked about Sophie's condition. They put it all together. Tom watched as James's phone kept buzzing with more messages. My sister says. James stopped, his voice breaking. She says people are starting to donate money for Sophie. Donate money, Tom repeated. Like for her surgery. James nodded, his eyes filling with tears. There's a website where people can give money to help others. Someone set up a page for Sophie. My sister says there's already £500 in it. That's wonderful, Tom said. It's a start, right? James wiped his eyes. Yes, it's a start, but it's still so far from what we need. Maybe more people will donate when they hear the full story, Tom suggested. Maybe, James said, but he didn't sound like he believed it. Tom's own phone buzzed. It was a message from his mom back in Ohio. Tom, are you okay? We saw you on the news. The boy who spilled coffee on the guard. Call me. Tom looked up at James. The story has reached America too. I'm sorry for dragging you into this, James said. This was supposed to be your vacation. Don't be sorry, Tom said. He had an idea forming in his mind. In fact, I think maybe we can use this. James looked at Tom with tired eyes. What do you mean, use this? The story, Tom said, feeling excited. Our story. The coffee spill. It's getting attention. Big attention. We can use that to help Sophie. How? James asked. He didn't seem to understand. Tom pulled out his own phone. Look, the video of me spilling coffee on you has 2 million views already. 2 million. And that's just on one website. James shook his head. I don't see how this helps Sophie. People love stories, Tom explained, especially stories with heart. A royal guard who breaks the rules to be kind to a clumsy tourist. A father trying to save his sick little girl. This is the kind of story people want to share. And James still looked confused. And we can ask them to help, Tom said. We can tell them about Sophie, about her heart problem, about the surgery she needs. We can ask them to donate. James sat up straighter. A small spark of hope showed in his eyes. Do you really think people would give money to help a stranger? People do it all the time, Tom said. Back in America, we have lots of cases where people raise money online for medical bills. Sometimes they raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. James was quiet for a moment. Then he said, but how do we get the story out there? I don't know any reporters or TV people. Tom smiled. You don't need to. We already have millions of people watching the video. We just need to add to the story. Tom thought for a minute. Then he held up his phone. Let's make a new video. Right now, you can tell everyone about Sophie. I'll put it online. We'll link to the donation page your sister found. James hesitated. I don't know. I'm a private person, and talking about Sophie's problems to the whole world. I understand, Tom said, but sometimes we have to do hard things for the people we love. James looked at the photo of Sophie in his wallet again. Slowly, he nodded. Okay, let's try it. They went outside to find a quiet spot. Tom held up his phone to record. James stood in front of a tree with the palace visible in the background. Hello, James said to the camera. His voice shook a little. My name is James Taylor. I was a royal guard at Buckingham Palace. Today, a tourist accidentally spilled coffee on me. He paused, taking a deep breath. I broke protocol by speaking to him. Many of you have seen the video. What you don't know is why I did it. James showed Sophie's picture to the camera. This is my daughter, Sophie. She's 7 years old. She has a heart condition called congenital aortic stenosis. She needs a special surgery that costs £50,000. His voice grew stronger as he spoke about his daughter. I tried everything to get the money. When the coffee spill happened, I thought being fired might actually help, because I would get some benefits to put toward her surgery. But now I have hope for a better way. If you enjoyed our story, if it made you smile or laugh, please consider helping Sophie. Even a small amount would mean so much to us. Tom turned the camera to show his own face. Hi, I'm Tom Wilson from Ohio. I'm the guy who spilled the coffee. I came to London for a vacation and found a friend instead. Please help us help Sophie. The link to donate is in the description of this video. Tom stopped the recording. That was perfect, he told James. Really good. Do you think it will work? James asked. He looked both hopeful and scared. I don't know, Tom answered honestly. But it's worth trying. Tom posted the video right away. He added the link to Sophie's donation page and wrote a short description of what happened. Then they waited. At first, nothing happened. 5 minutes passed. 10. James checked the donation page. Still just £500, he said with a sigh. Then Tom's phone pinged. Someone had shared the video. Then another ping. And another. It's starting to spread, Tom said. Within an hour, everything changed. Tom and James sat in the small cafe, watching their phones in amazement. The video was everywhere. News websites posted it. Famous people shared it. Everyone was talking about the guard, the tourist, and little Sophie. £5,000, James said, his voice shaking as he looked at the donation page. It's already at 5,000. Tom smiled. That's great. That's 10% already. But the donations didn't stop there. Every time James refreshed the page, the number went up. 6,000, 7,000, 8,000. People from all over the world were giving money. Some gave small amounts, £5, £10. Others gave hundreds. I can't believe this is happening, James whispered. His eyes were red, and he kept wiping away tears. Tom's phone rang. It was a news station from London. They wanted to interview him and James. Right after that call, another news station called. Then another. This is crazy, Tom said. Everyone wants to talk to us. James nodded, still staring at his phone. £15,000 now. In less than 2 hours. A young woman approached their table. She wore a neat suit and carried a small notebook. Excuse me, she said. Are you James Taylor and Tom Wilson? The guard and the tourist from the video. They nodded. I'm Kate Brown from the London Times, she said. May I ask you a few questions? Before they could answer, more reporters appeared at the cafe door. Word had gotten out about where they were. Soon, the small cafe was full of people with cameras and microphones. James looked overwhelmed. He wasn't used to all this attention, but when people asked about Sophie, his face changed. He spoke clearly and from his heart. He told them about her smile, her love of drawing, and how brave she was during hospital visits. She's never seen me in my guard uniform, James told the reporters. She's been too sick to come to the palace. All she knows is that Daddy goes to work with the Queen. This made many people in the room tear up. Even the tough-looking camera operators wiped their eyes. Tom told his part of the story too. He explained how he had saved for years to visit London, how awful he felt when he spilled the coffee, how surprised he was when James spoke to him. I thought my trip was ruined, Tom said. Instead, it became the most important journey of my life. As they talked, the donation page kept growing. £20,000, 25,000, 30,000. James's phone rang. It was his sister calling from the hospital where she was with Sophie. James, she said, her voice excited. The doctors are watching the news. They've seen the story. The head surgeon says if we reach the 50,000, he'll do Sophie's operation next week. James could hardly speak. Tell Sophie I love her, he managed to say before his voice broke. When James ended the call, He told everyone what the doctor had said. The reporters immediately shared this news, and the donations came even faster. By dinner time, something amazing happened. The donation page reached £50,000, the full amount needed for Sophie's surgery. But it didn't stop there. People kept giving. As the sun set over London, James and Tom sat in stunned silence, watching the number grow even higher. 60,000, 70,000. What will you do with the extra money? A reporter asked. James looked up, his face now showing a new emotion. Hope. There are other children like Sophie, he said. Children who need help. Maybe we can help them too. Tom looked at his new friend with pride. Just this morning, he had been a tourist taking photos. Now he was part of something much bigger. His phone buzzed with a message from his mom. Tom, we've donated too. Everyone in Columbus is watching your story. We're so proud of you. Outside the cafe window, a crowd had gathered. People waved and gave thumbs-up signs when they saw Tom and James inside. Some held signs that said, "Get well, Sophie," and "Heroes come in all forms." The next morning, James had to go to his meeting at the palace. He was nervous about losing his job. Even though they had the money for Sophie's surgery now, he still needed work to support his family. "Good luck," Tom said as they stood outside the palace gates. "I'll wait for you at the cafe." James nodded and walked inside. Tom watched him go, hoping things would turn out okay. While waiting, Tom checked the donation page. It now showed over £100,000, twice what they needed for Sophie's operation. Messages of support kept coming in from people all over the world. An hour later, James came out of the palace. His face was hard to read. "What happened?" Tom asked when James sat down at their table in the cafe. "I'm not fired," James said, sounding surprised. "That's great," Tom said. "There's more," James continued. "The captain said they've been getting thousands of calls and emails about me. About us. About Sophie." "What did he say about that?" Tom asked. "He said the palace has decided to do something special." James took a deep breath. "They want to help." "Help how?" Tom asked. "The Queen has a special fund for children's hospitals," James explained. "They're going to pay for a new children's heart unit at the hospital where Sophie is being treated. They're naming it after her." Tom's mouth fell open. "Sophie's heart unit." James nodded, his eyes filling with tears again. "They said our story touched people's hearts, even at the palace." "What about your job?" Tom asked. "They're giving me a new position," James said. "I'll be training new guards, which means regular hours. No more standing still for hours. I can spend more time with Sophie." "That's wonderful," Tom said. "There's something else," James said. He smiled for the first time that day. "They want to meet you." "Who does?" Tom asked. "The royal family," James said. "They want to thank you for what you did." Tom couldn't believe it. "But I didn't do anything. I just spilled coffee." "You did much more than that," James said. "You helped me save my daughter." Later that day, Tom received an official letter inviting him to a special tea at the palace the next day. That night, James took Tom to meet Sophie at the hospital. She was small for her age, with pale skin and dark circles under her eyes. But when she smiled, the whole room seemed brighter. "Are you the coffee man?" she asked Tom. Tom laughed. "Yes, I'm the coffee man." "Daddy told me you spilled coffee on his special red coat," she said. "I did," Tom admitted. "I'm sorry about that." "It's okay," Sophie said. "Daddy says it was the best thing that ever happened." The doctor came in and explained to Sophie that she would have her operation in 5 days. She would get a new heart valve that would help her heart work better. "Will it hurt?" Sophie asked in a small voice. "You'll be asleep," the doctor assured her. "And when you wake up, you'll start feeling better." "And can I go see Daddy at work?" "At the palace?" she asked. "As soon as you're strong enough," James promised. Sophie looked at Tom. "Will you still be here?" "After my operation?" Tom had planned to leave London in 2 days. His vacation time was almost over, but looking at Sophie's hopeful face, he knew what he had to do. "I'll be here," he promised. "I want to see you get better." "Good," Sophie said. She reached out and took Tom's hand. "Because you're our friend now." James put his arm around Tom's shoulders. "Yes, you are." As they left the hospital that night, reporters were still waiting outside. They took pictures and asked questions, but Tom barely noticed them now. He was thinking about how one small accident, a spilled cup of coffee, had changed so many lives. His vacation had become something much more important. He had found a new friend, helped save a little girl, and become part of a story that was touching hearts around the world. The next day, Tom went to the palace for tea. He wore his best clothes, which weren't very fancy. He wished he had packed a suit. "Don't worry," James told him as they walked through the palace gates together. "They care more about who you are than what you wear." Inside the palace, Tom felt like he was in a dream. Everything was beautiful and old. Paintings hung on the walls. Soft carpets covered the floors. People in neat uniforms showed them where to go. They entered a room with tall windows and fancy chairs. Several members of the royal family were there, smiling at them. "Mr. Wilson," one of them said, walking up to Tom. "We are so pleased to meet you." Tom tried to remember how to bow. He felt nervous and clumsy. "Thank you for having me," he said. His voice came out higher than normal. "Please, sit down," they said. "We want to hear all about your adventure." Tom and James sat down. A person brought them tea in delicate cups. Tom was afraid he might drop his cup and break it. He held it very carefully. For the next hour, they talked about everything that had happened. The royals were kind and interested. They asked many questions about Sophie and the amazing response to their video. "You have touched many hearts," one of them said. "Sometimes small accidents lead to big changes. We want to do more," another added. "The Children's Heart Unit is just the beginning. We want to help other children like Sophie." They explained that they wanted to start a special fund. It would be called the Sophie Fund and would help children who needed expensive medical treatments. "Would you be willing to help us?" they asked James. "Of course," James said. "It would be an honor." Then they turned to Tom. "And you, Mr. Wilson, we understand you must return to America soon. But perhaps you could be our American ambassador for this project." Tom couldn't believe what he was hearing. "Me? But I'm just a mechanic from Ohio." "You are much more than that," they said kindly. "You have shown how one person can make a difference, how kindness can spread." Tom felt tears in his eyes. "I would be happy to help in any way I can." After tea, they were given a private tour of parts of the palace that most tourists never saw. Tom took mental pictures of everything, knowing his friends back home would never believe this. When they left the palace, more reporters were waiting. Now they wanted to know about the Sophie Fund and how people could help. Later that evening, Tom called his boss back in Ohio. "I need to stay longer," Tom explained. "Sophie's surgery is in a few days. And then there's this new project they want me to help with." "I saw you on the news," his boss said. "The whole town is talking about you. Stay as long as you need. Your job will be waiting." Tom thanked him and hung up. He looked out the window of his hotel room at the lights of London. How different everything looked now compared to when he arrived just a week ago. His phone buzzed with a message from James. "Sophie wants to know if you'll read her a story tomorrow at the hospital." Tom smiled and typed back, "I'd be honored." Then another message came in. This one from a woman in Canada. "My son needs heart surgery too. Is the Sophie Fund really going to help kids like him?" Tom looked at the message for a long time. Then he began to type, explaining everything he knew about the new fund. As he wrote, he realized something important. His vacation wasn't ending. Something new was beginning. The donation page now showed over £200,000. Messages kept coming in from people who wanted to help, who had been touched by their story, who had children like Sophie. Tom thought about how it all started, with a simple cup of coffee spilled on a guard's uniform. He never could have imagined where that accident would lead. 1 year later, Tom returned to London. This time, he didn't come as a tourist. He came for Sophie's birthday party. So much had changed in a year. Tom now worked for the Sophie Fund full-time. He had left his job as a mechanic to travel around America, telling their story and raising money to help sick children. The fund had already helped 35 children get the medical care they needed. Tom took a taxi from the airport to the hospital, not because Sophie was sick, but because that's where the party was being held. The new Children's Heart Unit was having its official opening day, and Sophie was the guest of honor. When Tom walked into the hospital, he hardly recognized it. The walls were painted with bright colors and fun pictures. The rooms had comfortable chairs and toys. It looked more like a playroom than a hospital. "Tom," a happy voice called out. Sophie ran toward him, her arms open wide. Tom knelt down and hugged her tight. She looked so different now. Her skin had a healthy pink color. Her eyes were bright. She had grown taller and stronger. No one would guess that a year ago she had been so sick. "Happy birthday, Sophie," Tom said, giving her a small wrapped gift. Sophie tore open the paper. Inside was a little snow globe with a palace and a guard inside. When you shook it, brown coffee sprinkled down on the guard. Sophie laughed. "It's perfect." James came over, smiling. He wore his new uniform, still a royal guard, but with badges showing his higher rank. "Welcome back," James said, hugging Tom. "We've missed you." "I've missed you too," Tom said. "But look at all this." He gestured around at the new heart unit. "All because of a cup of coffee," James said, shaking his head in wonder. The party was wonderful. Children who had been helped by the Sophie Fund were there with their families. Doctors and nurses celebrated too. Even some of the royal family members came to cut the ribbon for the new unit. A reporter asked Tom how it felt to be back in London. "It feels like coming home," Tom said. "A year ago, I saved for 5 years just to visit this city. Now it's a part of who I am." Later, as the party was ending, Sophie took Tom's hand and led him to a wall in the main hallway of the new unit. There was something covered with a cloth. "I have a surprise for you," she said. She pulled the cloth away. On the wall was a beautiful painting. It showed a royal guard in a red uniform with a coffee stain on the front. Beside him stood a tourist with a shocked face. At their feet was his spilled coffee cup. Under the painting were these words: "Sometimes, accidents are not accidents at all. They are the beginning of something wonderful." Tom felt tears in his eyes. "Did you make this?" he asked Sophie. She nodded proudly. "The art teacher helped me. Do you like it?" "I love it," Tom said, his voice breaking a little. That evening, Tom, James, and Sophie walked through London together. They stopped at the spot outside Buckingham Palace where the coffee had spilled 1 year ago. "Should we put a sign here?" Sophie asked with a giggle. "This is where it all began." "I think the whole world already knows," James said, smiling at his healthy daughter. Tom took a photo of father and daughter standing together. Then a tourist nearby offered to take a picture of all three of them. "Are you friends visiting London?" the tourist asked. Tom looked at James and Sophie. They weren't just friends. They were more like family now. "No," Tom said. "We're home." As they walked away, Sophie between them, holding both their hands, Tom thought about how life could change in an instant. 1 year ago, he was just a tourist with a cup of coffee. Now he was part of something bigger than himself, all because of one clumsy moment that turned out to be the most perfect mistake he'd ever made. Sometimes accidents are not accidents at all. They are the beginning of something wonderful.